So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We're going to start a new story in the Masnavi today. So that's the story of the Bedouin and the Caliph. The Bedouin and the Caliph. So in the last section, Mawlana said, "Jaun shur talkh pish tikh bar." Go and take your briny, bitter soul. Take that to the sword. Sacrifice your briny soul. And instead, in exchange, go and get a soul that's like Darya Shirin, like a sweet river or sweet sea. And that simile reminded him of this story of the Bedouin who takes briny water from the desert to the Caliph, and he thinks he's doing something, but the Caliph is next to the Farat, next to the Tigris. So that's the next story of the Masnavi, the story of the Bedouin and the Caliph. So let's start, inshallah. Brother Abdurrahman, if you're not too tired.
In former days, there was a Caliph who made Hatim the slave of his liberality. He raised high the banner of munificence and largesse. He had removed poverty and want from the world. He was a sea of pearls, pure bounty. His largesse reached from calf to calf. In this world of dust, he was the cloud and the rain. He was the center wherein the bounty of the giver of all displayed itself. His gifts caused sea and mind to quake, caravan on caravan towards his liberality. His gate and portal was the point to which need turned. The fame of his munificence had gone into the world. Persians, Greeks, Turks, and Arabs were lost in amazement at his liberality and generosity. He was the water of life and the ocean of bounty. By him, both Arabs and foreigners were revived.
Mm-hmm. So this story is taking place at the time of this Khalifa, this Caliph, who had surpassed Hatim of Ta'i, right? In Persian, whenever you want to say someone is generous, and also Arabic, right? In Persian and Arabic, the epitome of generosity is Hatim of Ta'i. So he's a figure in Arabia. He lived, I think, 50, 60 years before the Prophet, right? But he was really famous for his generosity. So now Mawlana is saying this Caliph he surpassed Hatim, right? So everyone, Persians, Greeks, Turks, everyone would come to his door. Now, at the time of this Khalifa, there was this Bedouin and his wife who were really poor. So yeah, let's read the story of their argumentation, right? They had argumentations because this Bedouin was so poor. Okay, yeah, Brother Abdurrahman, if you don't mind.
Bismillah. One night, a Bedouin woman said to her husband, and she carried talk beyond bounds, "We are suffering all this poverty and hardship. Everyone is happy. We are unhappy. We have no bread. Our condiment is anguish and envy. We have no jug. Our water is the tears from our eyes. Our garment by day is the burning sunshine. At night, our bed and coverlet is of the moonbeams. We fancy the disk of the moon is a disk of bread and lift up our hands towards the sky. The poor feel ashamed at our poverty. Days turn to night by our anxiety about our daily portion. Kinsfolk and strangers have come to flee from us in like fashion as Samari from men. If I beg a handful of lentils from someone, he says to me, 'Be silent, O death and plague.' The Arabs take pride in fighting and giving. You among the Arabs are like a fault in writing. What fighting? We are killed without fighting. We are made giddy by the sword of want. What gifts? We are continually begging. We are slitting the vein of the gnat in the air. If any guest arrives, if I am I will go for his tattered cloak when he falls asleep at night."
Okay, so this woman is complaining to her husband. She's complaining, everyone else is happy, everyone else has a good life. We're the poor ones, we don't have anything. Now, one interesting thing I found about this section is, from the point of view of narrative, from the point of view of the story, Mawlana could start the story from here, right? One night, a Bedouin woman said to her husband, and then introduce the Caliph when he's mentioned, right? When he enters the story, introduce the Caliph. But Mawlana talks about the Caliph first, and then he introduces this Bedouin woman and her husband and the argumentation, whereas the Caliph enters the story much later. Why do you think Mawlana did that? Yes, Badabra.
Well, possibly because then it set their need in the context of wider generosity. You know, like I think, oh, I haven't got this and I haven't got that, but that need and that desire is always set in the sea of divine generosity.
Generosity, absolutely, absolutely. So it's Allahu Ghani. God has everything. Allah has everything. وَأَنْتُمُ الْفُقَرَاءُ. And then you realize that you're in need. وَأَنْتُمُ الْفُقَرَاءُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. You're dependent on Allah. You don't have anything. When you realize that Allah has everything, then you realize your own nothingness and your own need. And yeah, so Mawlana starts this story with, in a sense, with a sort of Bismillah, because this Caliph represents Allah, Allah's generosity. Everyone turns to Allah in need. Persians, Greeks, Turks, Arabs, everyone, they're all in awe of Allah. And the bounty of Allah has no bounds. So in a sense, this acts as a Bismillah in the story, right? Starting with the name of Allah, and then you move on to this woman and her husband. So yeah, she's saying we're suffering hardship, everyone else is happy. So she's comparing her life and their life with everyone else's lives, right? Comparison. And that comparison brings discontentedness, right? She's not content, she's not satisfied. We don't have bread, we're envious of other people, we don't have water. Our only water is the tears from our eyes. We don't have blankets at night except for the moonbeams. At night, when we look at the sky, we look at the moon, we think it's a loaf of bread. We want to catch that bread. This is how hungry we are. The poor feel shame at our poverty. Day is turned to night by our anxiety about our daily portion. So we're so anxious about whether we will have something to eat. خویش و بیگانه شده از ما رمان بر مثال سامری از مردمان. Just like Samiri escapes from people, from men, as it's in the Qur'an, right? His punishment was he became leprous and he had to flee from people. This is how we flee from people, because of our poverty. مر عرب را فخر غزو است و عطا. What the Arabs take pride in. Arabs take pride in two things. One is fighting, right? So they're fighting people, and giving. So generosity. So Arabs take pride in fighting and giving. But among the Arabs, you're just like a fault in writing, just like a book, and then there's a grammar or there's a spelling mistake, right? So he's saying you among the Arabs, you're a mistake. Everyone else is, the Arabs are fighting and they're generous, but you're like an error in writing. And we don't need fighting. We're killed without fighting, right? Because poverty is killing us. The sword of want, tigh faqr, right, is killing us. And we're continually begging. Mar magas ra dar hawa rag mizanim. We're so poor that we're just like the spider, that the spider is waiting for the fly to enter its web and then catch that fly. We're just like that spider. So گر کسی مهمان رسد گر منم شب به خسبت قصد دلق او کنم. If a guest comes to my place, again, we're so poor that if I want to act according to how I feel, I'm going to steal his cloaks while he's sleeping. So this is how poor we are. Any reflections, thoughts on this section? Yes, Badabra.
So where it says, be silent, O death and plague, that's a reference to the Samiri.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So he's saying we're so poor that if anyone asks, lentils from me, onions from me, I'll say, no, be silent, go away from me. Yeah, yeah, totally. Yes, Sahaja.
It just made me think of the level of ingratitude. Like We have this prescription of praying where we say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin like 10 times a day to remind us that we need to be grateful for what we're given. Then focusing on the lack, or just complete opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. So in this story, it's interesting because the husband represents contentedness and contentment, qana'at. And he's saying, let's just be happy with what we have. Why do you always seek more? Why do you always ask more? And the wife is representing, the other side. You need to seek, you need to ask. And there is this back and forth between them. So there is that dialogue, conversation. So it's again one of those dialogues like the lion and the beasts earlier on. The lion was saying effort is more important, and the animals were saying tawakkul, let's have trust in Allah. So it's a similar dialogue here between the woman and the man. So okay, so if there are no reflections, let's continue. So the last line, the woman says, if a guest comes to my place, we're so poor that I want to steal this guest's clothes. And Mawlana wants to draw a spiritual message from that. He's saying one has to become the guest of those who have something to offer you. And that the meaning is spiritually, you can only be enlightened if you're in contact with someone who is enlightened. Those who don't have anything, they can't give anything. So yeah, that's the next section. Your brother Abdurrahman, if you don't mind.
For this reason, the wise have said with knowledge, one must become the guest of those who confer benefits. You are the disciple and guest of one whom from his vileness robs you of all you have. He is not strong, how should he make you strong? He does not give light, he makes you dark. Since he had no light, how in association should others obtain light from him? Like the half-blind healer of eyes, what should he put in our eyes except wool? Such is our state in poverty and affliction. May no guest be beguiled by us. If you've never seen a 10 years famine in forms, open eyes and look at us. Our outward appearance is like the inward reality of the impostor, darkness in his heart, his tongue flashy. He has no scent or trace of God. His pretension is greater than Seth and the father of mankind. The devil has not shown to him even his portrait. He is saying, we are of the Abdal and are more. He has stolen many an expression used by dervishes in order that he himself may be thought to be a personage. In his talk, he quibbles at Bayezid. Yazid would be ashamed of his existence. Without portion of the bread and delicacies of heaven, God did not throw a single bone to him. He has proclaimed, I have laid out the dishes. I am the vicar of God. I am the son of the Khalifa. Welcome, O simple-hearted ones, tormented, that from my bounteous table that you may eat your fill of nothing. Some persons on the promise of tomorrow have wandered for years around that door. Tomorrow never comes. It needs a long time for the inmost conscience of a man to become evident, more and less. Beneath the wall of his body there is treasure, or whether there is the house of snake and ant and dragon. When it became clear that he was nothing, the life of the seeker had passed. What use the knowledge?
So yes, Maulana says, بهر این گفتند دانایان به فن میهمان محسنان باید شدن. This is why learned people, wise people have said that if you want to become someone's guest, you should become the guest of people who have something and who are generous, who are bountiful. تو مرید و میهمان آن کسی کو ستاند حاصلت را از خسی. But you become the student and murid of people who take what you have from you, right? Because they don't have anything to give you, they will take what you have. نیست چیره چون تو را چیره کند. He is not strong. How can he make you strong? He does not have light. How can he give you light? چون ورا نوری نبودن در قران نور کی یابند از وی دیگران. If this person doesn't have light, he cannot enlighten other people. Just like healer of eyes, if you want to be a healer of eyes, you need medicine. Only medicine can do that. But the person who's himself blind, he cannot be a healer of eyes. Instead, use wool or other things, and they will make you blind as well. Now, back to the woman. So she's saying, our poverty is such that may no guest come to our place. Because if a guest comes to our place, we're going to steal from that guest. We're not going to give anything to that guest. قحط 10 سال ندیدی در صور چشم ها بگشا و اندر ما نگر. If you haven't seen a famine of 10 years, what a famine of 10 years will do to people, come and look at us. Come and look at our situation. ظاهر ما چون درون مدعی. Our outward state, our financial state is like the inner reality of the imposter, right? The false spiritual teachers. در دلش ظلمت. Inside the heart, it's only darkness. But the tongue is flashy. They know how to speak, in a flashy way, an attractive way, but inside there's nothing, there's darkness. از خدا بویی نه او را نی اثر. There's no trace of God. There is no fragrance of God. بوی خدا. There's no scent of God in what they say. There's no fragrance. That's important, right? Because an artificial, just like a plastic rose, it might have the appearance of a rose, but it doesn't have the fragrance of a rose. Fragrance is something that's so hard to replicate, so hard to fake. But when it comes to pretension, when it comes to claims, these people will make big claims, bigger than Adam, bigger than Shaykh. Even Satans flee from these people, but they say we're saints, we're awliya. حرف درویشان بدزدیده بسی تا گمان آید که او هست و خود کسی. They steal the sayings of sages and saints so that people may think that these are also saints. Right? خورده گیرد در سخن بر بایزید ننگ دارد از درون او یزید. He quibbles at Bayezid. Right? Even Bayezid is not enough for him with all his greatness. And yet the reality of such people is that Yazid, right? Yazid, with all his evil, Yazid says, I have nothing to do with these people, right? I am ashamed of these people. Nang darad az darun ou Yazid. So Yazid would be ashamed of these people. Binava az nan u khan asaman pish ou nandacht haq yek ustakhan. They don't have anything from the nan u khan asaman, from the banquets of heaven. They haven't received any share. But despite this, in spite of this, they call other people. Here there's, I've laid out the dishes, come and join this table. I'm the vicar of God. Come and eat, but there's nothing on the table. So that you may eat your fill of nothing. There's nothing to eat. It's just empty dishes, nothing to eat. And then he says, okay, tomorrow I will bring something for you. But then tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow, there's always a tomorrow. And then what happens is you lose your life. So it's hard to know the inward of people. So these people who are deceived, it's because they don't know. They don't know the inward reality of this false imposter, right? It takes time for people to realize, to recognize that what is inside this body. Is it treasure or is it snakes and rats and dragons? It takes time to realize, and when it's realized, when it becomes clear, it's too late because life has been wasted. چون که پیدا گشت کو چیزی نبود عمر طالب رفت آگاهی چه سود. When it's clear that there's nothing inside, it's just empty, it's just pretension, it's too late because the life of the seeker, the life of the murid has been wasted, right? What use the knowledge? Any thoughts, reflections on this section? Yes, Badr.
So where it refers to the vicar, the Khalifa,
mm-hmm.
It puts me in mind of the vizier of the king, before, and his wicked deception of the Christians and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference this time, at least as I'm seeing that in this moment, is then it's more like theology, trying to pick your way through these ideas and trying to understand them and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But the nafs can easily transpose that to the past. Oh, look at those people. Oh, well, we're not like that. We know better than that kind of thing. We wouldn't get, because, you know, we follow the, you know, Nami Muhammad or some such thing.
Yeah.
However, here, it feels like Mawlana is saying to me, that's all pretense. What do you know? You don't know anything. Here, where you've chosen to spend your life, is it real? Are you real? Are you sincere? So it's a sort of a personalization of that as well. And again, Mevlana's like showing us that we can't work it out by ourselves. We will always fail, and that there's something else that's needed to help us through. So this is
absolutely. And you know, ultimately, the only way you can tell if you know this person has light or not is if you have some sort of light yourself, and then you can compare. You can see, no, this light is lacking, that scent is lacking. Yes. So ultimately, sincerity and having that connection with Allah and asking Allah for help. Just like Mawlana said last time, every day and multiple times a day, we say, "Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim," guide us. Because we can't trust ourselves. We can't say, no, we know the truth. We know the straight path. No, you need to continuously ask for help. Continuously, Ya Allah, help me. Help me distinguish. Help me know the path of truth and tell the path of truth from falsehood. And yeah, the next section, so Mawlana is saying it is possible that a murid puts his trust or her trust in a false sheikh and a false teacher. But because of the murids, because of the seeker's sincerity, because of the sincerity of this seeker, this murid might attain the spiritual rank that's way higher than that false teacher. So it is sometimes possible that even a false teacher, in spite of himself, he doesn't want to guide, but he becomes, in a sense, a vehicle, and not because of him, actually, because of the murids, because of the sincerity and asking for help, that murid might attain a rank. So yeah, maybe Brother Abdurrahman, if you're not too tired.
But exceptionally comes a disciple to whom, because of his illumination, that falsehood is beneficial. He, by his good intention, attains a degree, although he fancied soul, and that proved to be body. Like trying to find the Qibla in the heart of night. The Qibla is not, but his prayer is valid. The impostor has a lack of soul within, but we have a lack of bread without. Why should we conceal like the impostor and suffer agony for the sake of false reputation?
Yeah. So Mawlana says it may happen rarely, seldom, right, that a disciple sincerely puts his faith in a false teacher, false impostor. He thinks he's a holy person, and by means of this faith, because of this sincerity, he attains to a degree which his sheikh has never dreamed of, right? And fire and water do not do him harm, do not hurt him, though they hurt his sheikh, right? But then Mawlana says, "Valikan bin nadir, it's rare, it's seldom, it doesn't happen often." So nadir, exceptionally, nadir طالب آید کس فروغ در حق او نافع آید آن دروغ. It may be that falsehood can become beneficial because of his good intention, because of his sincerity. He attains a degree. گرچه جان پنداشت وان آمد جسد. He thought that this was a soul. This teacher, he had a soul. But in reality, it was empty. It was just like empty dishes without any food. چون تحری در دل شب قبله را. But this is like at the heart of the night. So this is something that they say, if it's nighttime, at the heart of the night, and you have no way to tell which way is the qibla. You don't know which way the qibla is. You can pray at in any direction, right? So it's like trying to find the Qibla at the heart of the night. You think Qibla is north, and for example, this way, and you pray this way, and later on, you may find out that that was not the Qibla, right? Now, the Qibla is not correct, but the prayer is correct because of the intention, because the intention is good, right? So yeah, Mawlana is saying if the intention is good, if the seeker has the right intention, he or she might attain the degree, even if the teacher is not a true teacher. مدعی را قحط جان اندر سر است لیک ما را قحط نان بر ظاهر است. Now again it's the woman who's speaking here. He says that imposter has a lack of soul within, but us, we don't have bread, we don't have food to eat. So why should we conceal our situation like the imposter, right? So the imposter conceals it, but we don't have to conceal it because our poverty is we don't have bread. It's not the spiritual poverty. It's not the lack of meaning, which is in the case of the imposter. Any thoughts, comments? Yes, Badaba.
Underlines the key importance of intention and sincerity. Absolutely fundamental.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Actions are by intentions. Yeah, totally. Can you still see the screen? Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, lovely. Okay. Okay, so if there are no other reflections, we could probably read the next section as well. Ali John, would you mind?
Yeah, no problem. Just the English.
Yes, please.
Okay, yes. How the Bedouin bade his wife be patient and declared to her the excellence of patience and poverty. Her husband said to her, how long will you seek income and seed produce? What indeed is left of life? Most is past. The sensible man does not look at increase or deficiency, because both will pass by like a torrent. Whether it be pure or whether it be a torpid fluid, do not speak of it, since it is not enduring for a moment. In this world, thousands of animals are living happily without up and down. The dove on the tree is uttering thanks to God, though her food for the night is not ready. The nightingale is singing glory to God. I rely on you for my daily bread, O you who answers. The falcon has made the king's hand his joy, and has given up hope of all carrion. Similarly, you may take from the gnat to elephant, they all have become God's family, and what an excellent provider God is. All these griefs that are within our breasts arise from the vapor, the dust of our existence, and wind. These uprooting griefs are as scythe to us. This is such and such, or that is such and such is a temptation to us. Know that every pain is a piece of death. Expel part of death from you if there be a means. When you cannot flee from the part of death, know that the whole of it will be poured upon your head. If the part of death has become sweet to you, know that God will make the whole sweet. Pains are coming from death as messengers. Do not avert your face from his messenger, O foolish one. Whoever lives sweetly dies bitterly. Whoever serves his body does not save his soul. Sheep are driven from the plains. The fatter they are, the quicker they are killed. The night is past and dawn has come. O my soul, how long will you take out the tale of gold from the beginning? You were young, and you were more contented. You have become a seeker of gold. At first you were gold indeed. You were a faithful vine. How have you become valueless? How have you become rotten when your fruit is ripening? Your fruit ought to become sweeter, and not to move farther backwards, like rope makers. You are my wife. The wife must be of the same quality in order that things may go rightly. The married pair must match one another. Look at a pair of shoes or boots. If one of the shoes is too tight for the foot, the pair of them is of no use to you. Have you ever seen one leaf of a door small and the other large, or a wolf mated with the lion of the jungle? A pair of sacks and a camel does not balance properly when one is small and the other of full size. I march with stout heart towards contentment. Why are you betaking yourself to revilement? In this fashion the contented man, moved by sincerity and ardour, was talking to his wife till daybreak.
Okay, so now the husband is answering the wife, right? So let's see what he says. So the husband says, how long will we seek income and produce, right? What we're losing is our life. Why are we not grateful for our life? And instead, we're always seeking more and more and more. And we're losing the moments we have of our lives. عاقل‌اند در بیش و نقصان ننگرد. Those who are intelligent don't look at profit and loss. زانکه هر دو همچو سیلی بگذرد. Because whatever it is in life, whether it's good, bad, profit, loss, more income, less income, this life will pass. It's not eternal. خواه صاف و خواه سیل تیره رو چون نمی پاید دمی از وی مگو. Whether it's pure or whether it's a flood, it doesn't last. So why talk about it? Why worry about it? And در این عالم هزاران جانور میزید خوش عیش بی زیر و زبر. 1,000 different types of animals. Look at them. They're all living happily. They're not anxious about tomorrow, what will happen tomorrow. شکر میگوید خدا را فاخته. The dove on the tree is thanking God. Right? They're not thinking about what shall we have for dinner tonight. They have tawakkul. They trust in Allah. The birds have trust in Allah. Right? حمد میگوید خدا را اندلی. The nightingale is singing glory to Allah. که اعتماد رزق بر توست ای مجیب. They say, I rely on you. I know that you're my provider, Ya Allah. You will provide for me. I don't need to worry about my sustenance. And same with the falcons. Right? They give up hope of all carrion. They say, my sustenance comes from the king, the falcon. The falcon relies on the king, not on anything else. همچنین از پشه گیری تا به پیل شد عیال الله و حق نعم المعین. All these different creatures, from a small gnat, from a mosquito to the elephant, they're all dependent on Allah. They all rely on Allah, and Allah provides for everything. Allah provides for the smallest ant up to the elephant. And then the husband says, these griefs and sadnesses that we go through, there is a reason. There is a reason for that. And that comes from our existence, our attachment to this world. And these griefs come to detach us from this world, just like the scythe that, we're connected to this world. We need to be detached. We need to be disconnected. So our grief is not without reason. دان که هر رنجی ز مردن پاره است. Know that every suffering you go through in this life, whether it's illness, whether it's poverty, it's a part of death. It's a piece of death. So if we can't do anything about the piece of death, it's like an alarm. It's like an alarm telling us death is coming. Death is coming and you can't do anything about it. چون ز جزو مرگ نتوانی گریخت دان که کلش بر سرت خواهند ریخت. If you can't escape the peace of death, you can't escape poverty, you can't escape old age, you can't escape sickness, you can't escape these sufferings in life. Know that you can't escape death either. Now, if the part of death has become sweet to you and you're happy with what you have, if you're sick, you're happy being sick. If you're poor, you're happy being poor. If that has become sweet to you, then your death will be sweet. دان که شیرین میکند کل را خدا. Allah himself will make death sweet to you. دردها از مرگ می آید رسول. از رسولش رو مگردان ای فضول. All these pains, all these sufferings are messengers from death. So don't turn your face away from these messengers. Instead, welcome these messengers. Welcome these pains. Welcome these sufferings. هر که شیرین میزید او تلخ مرد. Those who live sweetly, they die bitterly. Those who are preoccupied with their body, it's so hard, it's so difficult for them to give up their life. It's so hard for them to die. Death for them is such a bitter experience. گوسفندان را ز صحرا میکشند، آنکه فربهتر مرو را میکشند. When they want to sacrifice a sheep, when they want to kill a sheep, they choose the ones that are fatter first, right? So we don't need to worry about poverty. It's a gift. It's a gift because that means our death will be sweeter, right? So that's the point of view of the husband. Any reflections so far? Yes, Alisha.
Yeah, I think that it's just to some level, it's just a human condition to worry, to think of constantly of problems, and to some degree be pessimistic about life. And I think at least from a biological point of view, I mean, pessimism in a situation where it's life and death and survival depends on it, then pessimism can be quite important to survive. But a lot of what we see at the general anxiety, in some senses, constant worrying about things that we have no control over, and that is the dilemma of the modern man, that he's constantly trying to control things that are outside the scope of his control. And as Mawlana says beautifully, if Allah can provide for the birds and for the animals of the sea, then surely Allah can provide for us as well. Of course, this relates also to the previous story that we read a few months ago about Kalila and Demna, where there's a discussion about, well, should we work hard and have tawakkul, or should we just have tawakkul? And of course, it's important to work hard and have tawakkul.
Absolutely.
Both are quite important. But also to not worry, because ultimately it is Allah who is in control. And if we are worrying too much, in some sense we are being arrogant, we're being egoistic, because we are thinking that we can control everything, that we must have control, and that leads to anxiety.
Totally. Yes, but Abra.
Line where it says, the night is past and dawn is come, O my soul, how long will you take up the tale of gold from the beginning? So that makes me think all the way back in the Naynama and around there, where at the end it says, how long will you allow yourself to be in chains to gold and silver? And then somewhere nearby there, it's around there, maybe not in the first 18 verses, talks about time. If time is short, let it go. Beloved is everything, and very beautiful and evocative. This feels like like an echo of that, insofar as it's another reminder, because we get caught in time and place, and we get caught in our idea of where we should be, which is more often than not, it seems like just our nafs's projection on, look at me, I'm so important, I should be like this, or I should be like that.
Absolutely.
And both of those things are a species of worrying about money and worrying about time and position. So it's a very helpful reminder.
Totally. Yes, and it's in the Qur'an, right? Al-Hakum al-Takathur. You're distracted by takathur, wanting more and more, competing with each other, wanting more and more of this world. Hatta zurtumul maqabir, until you visit the graves. And then you realize there's no point in this, right? And then you will know. Okay, so the husband is continuing, right? So he says, when you were young, you used to be more content. What has happened? Now you're older, and now before you used to be gold, now you seek gold. You've become a seeker of gold. At first you were gold indeed. And that's interesting, because sometimes, this wanting more and more is because there's a lack within, right? Because people who are gold and they have their treasures within, they don't seek external validation, right? You seek that external things when there's poverty within, when there's something lacking within. So the husband's saying, you used to be gold yourself, but now you've become a seeker of gold. Now he's saying, as you age, you should become more wise, right? Your fruit ought to become sweeter. Why do you moving backwards? Like rope makers, when they want to make a rope, they go backwards. Why do you go backwards? Juftemai, you're my wife, and the wife should be of the same quality, right? So جفت باید بر مثال همدیگر در دو جفت کفش و موزه در نگر. Look at the pair of shoes. They need to be the same size, right? If one of them is too tight, the pair is useless. So, and he gives different examples. Look at the door, the leaves of the door, they have to be of the same size. Look, have you ever seen a wolf mated with a lion? A pair of sacks on a camel, that if you want them to balance properly, they have to be roughly of the same size. So my heart is set on contentment. I seek contentment. Why do you seek more and more? مرد قانع از سر اخلاص و سوز زین نسق میگفت با زن تا به روز. And this man, until daybreak, until morning, he was saying these things to the woman. Yes, Badabir.
The image of moving backwards like rope makers is quite interesting, because it suggests we tie ourselves up in knots and we restrict ourselves, and it makes me think of the rope of Allah. It's the opposite of that. But it's an interesting image.
Yeah, totally. Yes, Alijan.
Yeah, perhaps from a social point of view, there's also, now with the social media, the social comparison scale has completely exploded over the past decade. Because in the past, if somebody was comparing themselves to somebody else in terms of materialistically, at least, it might have been the same person from the village who had 3 more horses, and maybe I had 1 horse, so okay, it wasn't that bad. But now if you have let's say a bike, and then you see somebody on Instagram who's driving around with 25 Lamborghinis, then the social comparison scale is completely off the charts.
Totally.
And I think that's also what's making it quite worse, because especially perhaps a lot of the youth who are looking at these pictures, they're not reflecting on the history of that individual, the amount of wealth that his parents might have had, or what kind of circumstances he was born in. They're just looking at this superficial image of success and wealth and felicity, and they're thinking that just through hard work they can achieve the same. But that's just an illusion, because it's not always possible to get whatever you want through hard work. It's obvious. If I work hard in a Western country versus a person who works hard in Zimbabwe, let's say, or Ghana, where the situation, the socioeconomic situation is so different, then it's clear that my hard work is going to lead to more wealth, materialistically, because the circumstances are more appropriate. So the whole social circumstances and the economic situation that is surrounded each individual is very different. But a lot of people forget about it when they're comparing themselves. It's a very superficial level of comparison.
Yeah, absolutely. Envy is, it's a human quality. It's always been there. But social media, it has just increased that problem. It has made that problem much worse. Yeah, totally. And, a lot of those photos are not even real photos. They might be edited, or they might be, borrowed Lamborghini, who knows? Who knows? But yeah, the envy is there. Yeah, totally. Yes, Elijah.
Yeah, I mean, a few months ago we were doing this. We were writing actually this paper about where we were looking at the association between abuse or let's say problematic use of social media and then different psychiatric problems like depression and anxiety and so on. And then even statistically, we could clearly show that there is a strong correlation that the more you use social media problematically, especially Facebook and Instagram, then the higher the risk of getting depression and anxiety is. And we see that through a lot of studies. And a lot of people who are actually really prone to falling into this trap is a lot of lonely people who don't have a good social network, who don't have a social circle, and they're quite isolated from society. And the sense that if I'm, for instance, constantly comparing myself to someone, then I might feel, well, I'm not worthy of having friends. I'm not worthy of being with anyone because I'm constantly worse and I can't be as good.
Yeah, exactly. Low self-confidence, that kind of thing. Yeah, totally.
Absolutely.
And it goes with anxiety. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Any other thoughts, reflections? Okay. So yeah, we're next week we're going to continue this back and forth between the husband and the wife. So the husband says, "Why are you not content?" And then in the next section, which we're going to read next week, inshallah, the wife says, "Don't talk about your rank." Right? سخن افزون از قدم و از مقام خود مگو. Don't talk about being content, because that's not your rank. That's not your spiritual rank. Why do you say what you do not do? Right? You don't have this tawakkul in you. And yeah, that's the next section. The woman is saying this is all boasting. It's not true contentment. Yes, I agree, true contentment is a treasure, but you don't have that. So why do you talk about it? And then again, the woman says, why do you look at poverty with the eyes of contempt? Poverty is pride. And then the woman, it's a back and forth, but it's interesting. So yeah, inshallah, we'll continue next week. Okay. Any other thoughts before we move on to the divan? Yes, Badabra.
Just to again reiterate how reading it together in this slow fashion has really helped me understand these back and forths in Mawlana, in the Masnavi. It's really very helpful. And I guess what I'm saying is thank you. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, this back and forth in these dialogues in the Masnavi, they're quite interesting because like what we read in The Lion and the Beasts, right? The lion speaks and we're saying, yeah, that's right, we agree. And then the beast speak and then we agree. So it's Mawlana is showing us the different points of view, and they're both valid in their own right.
Like when we looked at the Christians, the vizier, every section, yep, that's the one.
Yes, that's the one.
You're so right. Oh my goodness, how could I have been?
Totally.